This is how you crush the Marsh Creation Raid. Welcome back to Cocky Gachas, and in this video I'm going to share with you my personal tips on how you can get a higher score for Marsh Creation Raid quite easily if you employ some of these tips. Starting with the number one most obvious, you want to use Mineral type as well as Beast type Afflictus units, and the reason is the boss is naturally Beast type, so Mineral type already counters, but the environment conditions states that you would get even better defense as well as offensive capabilities if you were to employ even the Beast Afflictus units. Hence, you definitely want to employ units of these two Afflictus optimally, and furthermore, you want to select those that deal mental DPS, and the reason is because the boss has an extremely high reality defense, as you can see on the screen, as rating. So this is quite obvious. You want to avoid reality DPS and go towards mental DPS. One example would be Melania over Centurion, for instance, although they are both Beast Afflictus units. Now moving on, this is the key to the entire fight, and that is Dispel is king. Although it is extremely important to maintain buffs on your unit so that the boss skills do less damage to you, the most important thing that you can do is on dispelling the boss's buff, because not only do their passive skills give them additional damage per buff that they have on them, also they are going to have very scary buffs like incantation might increase, they're going to have penetration rate increase, and also they are going to have like mental defense up and reality defense up, depending on which units that you are using, right? Of course, some of these buffs are not as scary, which is also bringing me to my next point, knowing when to dispel it away. So you don't always need to dispel every single turn. There are some exceptions. So if I were to see, like I am using a mental DPS user team, like Calabuana, I have like Pickles, all of these are mental DPS. So if they have increased reality defense only, I'm not going to care too much. But once I see increased incantation might, I will shiver and I will definitely want to dispel it off. And you might be thinking, hey Cocky, I cannot dispel, I don't have all those good units like Pickles and even Necrologist not really built, right? So what can you do? From that aspect, you can leverage on the environment conditions of the boss, meaning you are able to use buff cards, you are able to use counter cards and healing cards at rank 2 and rank 3 to naturally dispel away the stats up and the positive status, except for counter. So for counter, you really need to use Pickles, Horrorpedia, or even Charlie Ultimate, stuff like this to actually dispel it away so that you can deal additional 40% damage to the boss. But most notably, I will tell you that survivability is key in this raid. If you can survive long enough, the DPS will come in, right? So if you slack too much, or if you let 1 or 2 incantation might buff stay on them, penetration rate buff stay on them, you are likely going to see your team wipe coming extremely fast. So this is in fact the most important thing I want to stress in this whole raid. And additionally, right, or alternatively, there are 2 other methods that you can go about this. So you don't always have to dispel the scary buffs. If you are able to eliminate the opponent or the boss's way to act, then you can choose to slack for 1 turn, just go full offensive, you don't need to dispel away. And how you do it is by pushing the HP bar. So once you push the HP bar, the boss will not be able to attack for that turn. So they'll go into the other turn without casting their attacks. So this is one of the best ways you can use to maneuver around their stupid buffs and their stupid attacks. And also, additionally, from a survivability end, right, you can have shields and you can have counters, because the boss is going to deal less damage to your units if they have counter on or if they have shield on. So these 2 are quite good, but of course, shield is not as good because they usually last for 1 turn and they're going to be depleted by the boss itself. So counter comes in very clutch as well. So units such as Balloon Party, units such as Voyager are able to keep the counter up on the entire team, which means that you are going to straight up have a defensive layer on top of your buffs, on top of your HP as a factor. So this is going to be very helpful. So 3 ways to maneuver around the survivability issues of the boss. Now if we go on to the offensive front, what happens if you do not have a unit that can dispel away the counter? Does that mean that you are doomed? Not exactly, because the counter only comes out every 2 rounds. So effectively every even turn they are going to have the corrode buff up, but it only lasts for 1 round. So you can time it, your burst, when the corrode or the counter is actually down. And alternatively, an even more high level aspect, right? If their HP is already going to be expired, that means they have very little HP, what you can do is, if they are currently in the counter stage, push some of your DPS in to clear off the HP bar. Once the HP bar is gone, the corrode and the counter will disappear once they move into the new HP bar, and that is when your second half, meaning if you have 4 AP, first 2 AP can be used to deplete away the HP bar, and then maybe you have a Calabuana burst, you can use it on your 3rd AP or your 4th AP, whereby you are already moving into the new HP bar and they do not have counter anymore. So this is like a min-max technique that you can do to exploit turns even if you do not dispel away counter. And lastly, I'm going to say this, your run is likely going to end if you let the boss cast the ultimate. Even having the shield is going to be a big detriment because it's very unlikely you are able to burst through, and also it is very unlikely that even if you are able to burst through, you are able to rack up high amounts of damage. So how can you counter this ultimate? Once again, you do this by manipulating the HP bar. So what happens is, if the boss goes into a new HP bar, they will effectively lose all the Eureka even if they're about to cast the ultimate. What this means is that if the boss is about to cast ultimate but the HP bar is quite low, you can take a gamble and just straight up go offensive. Do not cast any of the healing spells. Just straight up try your best to clear off the HP bar if possible. Of course, if it's at half, you already screwed up, so you already got. So what happens in those scenarios when you are at half, how to reduce those occurrences? You can do so by ensuring that you always enter a new HP bar with a burst. So if you straight up burst the boss at the end of the HP bar, you will move on to the new HP bar and you will move on with less than full HP while they are on Eureka 0 or Eureka 1. So this is going to extend the number of turns. Instead of using some weak ass attack, so you go into the new HP bar whereby it is almost full, you are going to have less time compared to if you save your burst for when the boss is about to use the ultimate, especially into the later stages, and then you burst through this HP bar, right? This also have the added benefit of bursting at a lower damage reduction, because if you were to do 100k damage at a lower HP bar with lower damage reduction, this excess of the rest remaining of HP bar goes into the new HP bar straight up as score as damage towards the new HP bar, even though they are at a higher damage reduction. So you can see how this is very effective by manipulating HP bars. Of course, this is rather min-max. If you just employ some of the earlier tips, you should be able to get a very good score already. But if you want to go to the extra mile, these are the steps that you need to take. Now, of course, in this video, I just vaguely touch on the units that you should be using, but if you want my tier list for which ones are the best one, definitely check out this video. I'll see you guys over there. This is Cocky Gachas, signing off.